Welcome back, everyone, to episode 3 of the Jader and Kyle show. Thank you for joining us again. We're rolling along, still in quarantine, still trying to bring you as much content as possible. I'll introduce myself. My name is Kyle Arango. I am one of your co-hosts, and I'm joined by my buddy Jader. Jader,
Yo, how's it going, guys? How's everything? How you doing, Kyle?
oh, doing good, man. Just hanging in there, watching a lot of movies, trying to get some content in. They tell you early if you want to make it in the film industry, you gotta become smarter. And that's what I've been doing is just watching so many films, trying to expand my knowledge right now. You've listened to interviews with all these filmmakers, they say that's all they do is watch movies. So just trying to, learn as much as I can every single day.
Yeah,
It's been fun.
it's been fun. Let me tell you. For guys like us that enjoy sitting down and watching films, like this has been like it's Christmas for us. The situation sucks, but we always got to make the best of it.
Right.
But I've been able to catch up on a lot of films.
Oh, yeah.
And it's crazy. I was going through my Facebook memory yesterday. I think it was yesterday, the day before. And happy anniversary, man. We did our first review together year ago for Endgame when we got to see Endgame early.
That's right.
And it popped up, dude. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And now me and you have a show together. So it was pretty kick-ass to see that.
I can't believe that movie came out a year ago now.
It's
That was
crazy,
the
huh?
biggest movie in the world, and it's a year old already.
Yep. And I was watching I love looking at some things on my Facebook memory because I'm like, man, the hype I had a couple days ago. I think it was the Age of Ultron that I posted. I was sitting down to watch Age of Ultron and how hyped I was.
Yeah.
And then the next day you'll see that I'm like, it was okay, like kind of like that. But I love always being hyped for films. I hate getting disappointed by them, but it is a reality in the world we live in. Not every movie is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Foreshadowing right there.
yeah, a little foreshadowing. But it's part of the movie experience for me. Part of the whole experience is the anticipation for the film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I love seeing some of that. And I always post, at least for the most part. I haven't been posting what I've been watching lately. You know how people just post like, oh, watching, Godfather for the first time. I haven't been doing that because if not, I'd be bombarded, or people would tell me like, yo, dude, go outside.
Yeah.
So, but I loved it when it was a big movie like that, like Avengers, or I even put. I remember one time for one of the Fast and Furious films, like I was super hyped for it. And I love looking back on that. I'm like, man, I remember, like, I still get hyped about, certain films that are coming out, which we're obviously going to jump into that in a little bit. But I love seeing that memory. And that, I'm like, man, we should have done that, and I apologize I couldn't do the show yesterday, but, family things. But I wanted to do it yesterday because I think it was yesterday that I did see it. I'm like, man, it would have been awesome to do the show today. Like, literally a year later, we have a show now,
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember walking out of Ultron and thinking like, yeah, I loved it. It was so much fun. But then always in the back of your mind thinking, man, something's
Was
missing.
it?
Yeah.
Was it?
Was it that
So
good?
I remember that I saw Ultron. My mom never goes to the movies as much as a movie buff she is. She likes to stay at home and watch it at her own pace.
Right.
And my mom overall is her the language barrier is major. She watches all the movies subtitled. She understands English fairly well because I would get phone calls from my teachers, and she's like, "No, I understood her," and I was like trying to translate, like, "Yeah, he's doing okay, not terrible." And she goes, "No, no, 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 I know what terrible means in English." But anyway, I remember that I went to the theater to see that opening night with it was my mom, and a bunch of my friends, my little brother. A bunch of us went. It was a good like 8 or 9 of us, right?
Right.
And my mom was blown away by the film, blown away. And her favorite film, and I think it's all just the spectacle of things, is Avatar. Like, loves Avatar, lives and breathes, because I remember she bought a 3D TV specifically for that movie.
Yeah.
And then it was Avatar until I showed her Avengers. So when Avengers came out, that changed the game for her, and she fell in love with the Marvel. She still loves the Marvel universe. She's actually, funny enough, doesn't like DC that much. She's like, those movies are okay. Like, and I'm like, if my mom can see that, that is nuts. But I remember that when Age of Ultron came out, we walked out of the theater, and I was hyped because I had just seen a new Avengers movie. But overall, it was one of those like, did I really like it that much? And my mom was like, "You're crazy. It's better than the first one." I'm like, no, it's not. And now like we talk about it, she was like, "Yeah, it's definitely the worst one now." Like in
It is.
retro.
And you could see how worn out Joss Whedon was. And I remember like being really into the box office numbers. I still am. And I was hoping like, oh, this thing's gonna crush the first one. It's gonna way outperform it. But then I remember that same weekend was the Pacquiao Mayweather fight. And I think that really hit Ultron hard to where it only made 190 million over the weekend when the first one did 202 or 203.
Yeah, I thought it was 206, but yeah,
It might be 206, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, is this a disappointment? People not care anymore, and now look where we are.
But I feel like the word of mouth hurt that movie because not everybody was praising it like
No.
the first Avengers movie. That first Avengers movie literally felt like a comic book. If it was like a nerd's wet dream, I couldn't even believe some of the things that I was seeing on screen as I was watching that movie.
Right.
That for me is hands down, like I want to say my top 3 to 5 best movie going experiences ever because no one knew what to expect. Everybody was hyped about it, but nobody thought we were gonna get the movie that we got.
No.
And I know you don't like the first movie as much, like you said, it's kind of dated, but sitting that in that theater in 2012, that it was a mind blowing experience.
Right.
So that it's one of the reasons I feel, and we'll get to this a little later. Movie going experiences for me, at least, make me sometimes love the movie more than I should. But since I hold on, and I think I've said this before with Bad Boys 2, how it was the first rated R movie that I went to go see. I was by myself. It was a shitty week for me because my grandfather had just passed that same week that Bad Boys came out. So my grandfather lived in Nicaragua. So my mom, everybody flew out to go see him, and they couldn't afford my ticket. So I had to stay back, and I couldn't go to the funeral. And my grandfather's the man that raised me. He was my dad. So I remember I just wanted to like disconnect, and I ended up going to the movies to go see Bad Boys, and I had a great time with it. So it was one of those, I got away for 2.5 hours, and that's why that's another reason I feel like I cherish that movie that much, because it was the situation that I was in. My first rated R movie, like it was my first rated R movie. It was the first movie that I got to show my ID, because I used to go see R-rated movies all the time, but it was the first one where I didn't need an adult with me. So I think that's another reason why I do praise Bad Boys the way that it was just the experience for me as a whole. So.
And Bad Boys 3 is now out on Blu-ray. Just came out on Tuesday, and it's on digital stream. So if you want to see that, I would check that one movie out, because we're not going to get a lot of new releases this year, and it's a very good movie. So please check that one out.
It's an Oscar contender right now, dude.
It sure is. It wouldn't be funny if we had the Oscars right now and you had stuff like Birds of Prey and The Invisible Man and The Way Back and Bad Boys involved in it. It'd be great.
So funny, man. It'd be great. That'd be great to see. I'm not gonna lie. If just cancel movies for the rest of the year, God, God forbid. But let's say we do live in that world where that happens, and you get your Best Picture nominees, and it's those movies that you just mentioned. It'll be freaking hilarious.
But we did talk about Marvel a little bit, and Marvel was in the news this week. Let's start with Sony's version of it. First, Venom. Venom had a title change. We got Venom 2 had a title change, actually. It was supposed to come out October of this year. It's called Venom Let There Be Carnage is the name. And that movie was supposed to come out in October. They've pushed it all the way to, I believe it was June of next year, June or July. It was something around that. It's coming out after Morbius, like it was originally planned for Sony. And this title kind of divided people. People are like, what is this? Let There Be Carnage. It's like Let There Be Light from the Frankenstein movies,
Yeah. I'm one of the ones that hates the title. I didn't like it. I don't like it at all. Venom 2, honestly, would have worked perfectly fine, and I think I would have been way more content.
I like the title because this. So I don't know how you felt about the first Venom. I can acknowledge that it's a bad movie. I had a fun time with it, though, and I think it knew what it was going for. It kind of fell into that cheesiness territory and said, let's just sit here. Let's just bathe in this cheesiness. And now going into the second film, they said, we know exactly what we're doing. We know how ridiculous we are. We're going to give it a ridiculous title. Let There Be Carnage. I believe that's the line Woody Harrelson says at the end of the first Venom is let there be.
Yeah, there will be carnage or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
like so on the nose that I was like, ugh, and like hard eye rolls when that thing came up. He was looking like Annie.
Yes, he was. That wig is
Oh,
terrible.
God.
That's what plays into it. I think they know just how bad of film they were making, and they're like, okay, well, let's accept it. That's like what the Fast and Furious movies did. They knew what to sit into once they got to the fifth movie. Like, okay, we're not this serious movie about these mechanics doing robberies. We're a little cheesy. We're a little ridiculous. Let's jump into it in Fast Five, and that's what we got, and that's what we've had ever since. I think
it's the best one if Fast Five for me remains the best one out of the Fast series.
Absolutely, it's one of the better action movies we got in the last century.
So great, it's so great. My thing with Venom, I'm not gonna say I didn't have fun watching the movie. I was let down by it. Already walking in, I was let down because we were promised an R-rated Venom movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And last minute studio changes, and you can tell that the way that movie was edited, that it had a lot more violence than we actually got.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not all for, again, I need to see heads getting ripped off and guts and all that stuff. I'm not, if the movie's supposed to be PG-13, just like your Avengers and Iron Man's and Ant-Man's and all these films, then let it be PG-13. That's fine. But you promised us that we were going to see Venom. If anybody's read a Venom comic or knows the character, he is a violent character.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and he rips people's heads off, and it's just the way that he was written, you know. Yeah. And you can tell in this movie, like there's some scenes. There's and I've only seen that movie one time.
Me too.
I saw it in the theater, and that was it. Never saw it again. I actually shit on it more because the more I started thinking about it, the more mad I got. While watching it, I'm like, it's fine. I not even said it was fine. I'm like, it's okay.
It's not the worst thing ever, like people were saying.
No. It's you know what movie I actually hated more than that, and I said this on the streaming show that we have. I hated the Predator more than I hated Venom.
Absolutely.
But I still feel like Venom was a huge disappointment. Now, when Venom was on the screen, great, great stuff, and I love the back and forth between Venom and Eddie. Loved all that. I felt like, growing up, Eddie Brock was always this, big dude, took no shit. He was a wuss in this movie. He was a big wuss. I like that. And Tom Hardy usually does not portray, or to me at least, Tom Hardy's a badass. In everything that I've seen him in, he's pretty much a badass. In this movie, I didn't see that. I saw him, and I get it. The realistic thing is you're obviously getting, some disease in you or whatever. And you don't know how your body's going to react to it. So I get that part of it, but I still felt like he was, I don't know, it was not, I didn't like the villain. What's his name? Slipping.
Riz
Ahmed. I didn't like him as a villain. He was very, very like.
Oh, he wasn't good in this movie. Michelle Williams was just having fun. Who am I missing? And those are really the big three.
Eddie Brock is dying half of the movie because he gets the symbiote in him, and Michelle Williams gets it and masters it in like 2 seconds to go save him and shit. So I was like, come on, bro. Like, I don't know.
Michelle Williams masters it. She masters everything. She's a great actor. This new one is going to be directed by Andy Serkis, which I'm really excited about. I think that's an interesting choice. And from everything we've heard, now you're adding Woody Harrelson to the cast. You're bringing back Michelle Williams and Tom Hardy. I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
So am I. And I'll tell you what. I heard this one was rated R as well. I hope they don't change it. But I did hear that this was going to have an R-rating movie. An R rating. I think it's all due because of Joker success and what was the other comic? Oh, Logan and all that stuff, right?
Well, if Venom requires an R rating, the character itself, Carnage requires like a super R rating.
Super R rating, and that's where I was going. Woody Harrelson, as much as I make fun of him when I saw him on screen, is a great choice, because if you've ever seen Natural Born Killers, he can bring that character of Mickey Knox to Cletus Cassidy. He will kill. He would kill in that role. He can be made for that role, and it would work. He is a serial killer. That is what Carnage is. He is a serial killer that gets a symbiote. I hope, and I know Serkis, I haven't, not that I can't, I haven't seen Mowgli. His version of the Jungle Book. I haven't seen it. I heard it is a dark film. Compared to the other ones we've obviously gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But I am such a huge fan of Andy Serkis that I completely have faith that he will, even though Rupert Fletcher did the first one.
Right.
And he's been hit or miss, but he coming off of Zombieland, I had hype. I had a little bit of hope. But I'm hoping that this movie is better, and I think that they can actually grab the good that obviously they listen, and hopefully they not that they should listen to the fans and make every move or anything like that.
Right.
But if they take the good from the movie and bring it to part two and make it better, they can have a great movie on. And we've seen a lot of sequels surpass the original. So.
And you can see that the cast and the filmmakers are excited about this. Like Tom Hardy really enjoys this character. He seems like a very serious actor who picks and chooses what he wants to do very specifically. And you can tell that he really likes to play Venom. He's really excited to do it. And so the passion is there. There are rumors that Tom Holland is going to be a part of this. And that brings us to our next topic. One quick other Sony title change, or not title change, but move. Spider-Verse sequel has moved from October 2021 to April 2022.
I know that breaks my heart.
You're gonna have to wait a little bit for that one.
That breaks my heart, man.
But hey, we waited a while for the first one. We're gonna get a lot of superhero movies piled together for a little bit, and we're gonna blink at one point, and then it's gonna be here. They also moved. So people still don't understand this. Sony owns Spider-Man. The MCU Spider-Man you see is a Sony property. So they controlled the release date. So when Marvel pushed back all of their films, Spider-Man never moved because Marvel doesn't have the authority to do that. Well, Sony finally followed suit today or yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
And now Spider-Man has moved from next summer all the way to November of 2021. So we're still getting it next year. We're still going to have it. But now it is officially back in its regular spot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, which also pushed back Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness from November to March. And you would think that would push Thor Love and Thunder back from March to October. Nope. Thor Love and Thunder is now coming out in February.
Give me some Thor, and it's perfect because it has
that's the one I'm most excited for.
Love and Thunder earlier February being Valentine's Day. It's a great push. It's a great push, and you just mentioned the three films, obviously, that I'm most excited for. At first, before I had seen Far From Home, they had already mentioned Doctor Strange, and that was my number one anticipated. I'm dying to see what they do with Doctor Strange, especially if they're gonna be mixing around with other dimensions and things like that. I was super hyped, And then obviously I was excited for Dr. Scott Derrickson, but now Sam Raimi taking the helm, even more exciting because I know that guy can do some twisted stuff, especially with the character and the story like Doctor Strange. I'm super hyped. But then going back, I was hyped only for Doctor Strange. This is before they even announced a Thor movie, and before we saw Far From Home. But the ending of Far From Home, I don't know how anyone cannot be excited for a third Spider-Man film because the ending of that film was just one of the greatest things ever. And the post-credits scene, everything about it was so great.
It's the best part of the movie to me because I don't know if you've watched Far From Home as much out of theaters. It doesn't. It's not as good as Homecoming, first of all, and I think it's on the lower end of the Marvel films, which eventually we'll get to when we do our Marvel ranking. But you'll see on mine, it's a little lower, which I was really hyped about it walking out. It doesn't hold up as much, so we'll get to that.
I gotta see it again. I don't know, man. I love that movie. I love it. I saw it in the theater twice, and I liked it the second time just as much. But I don't think I've even seen it at home, to be honest with you. I think I've only seen it twice in the theater. And even the second time I still enjoyed it, but it was still weekend hype.
Yeah.
It was still that opening weekend because we saw it obviously at an early screening. And then that Thursday I saw it because I had already bought my tickets for it.
Yeah.
So it was that, I saw it in the span of 2 days and I was really hyped about it. And I think also it has to do with the crowd again the movie going experience
Mhm.
because I knew what was coming, and seeing everybody react to can we talk spoilers?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the
All right.
reveal that
Yeah,
Mysterio
yeah.
was.
Mysterio tells them that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and then J.K. Simmons popping up on the screen, dude. That everybody in that theater lost their minds. And then you have the credit scene all the way at the end credits, where you see Nick Fury with the and they can do the Secret War storyline, which is freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to look forward to. Spider-Man wise, so it's one of those like I don't know how people cannot be hyped to see this movie. I want. They haven't released a villain or anything, right? They haven't released.
No, they haven't said a word. So Tom Holland was on Jimmy Kimmel this past week and was saying that he was currently filming Uncharted. They had started their first day of filming Uncharted, and then he was going to jump to Spider-Man right after that. Now, since everything's put on hold, he was wondering what he's going to go to next. Based on the Sony release mix-up, Uncharted's coming out first because Uncharted actually moved up to, I believe it was October of 2021. So you're going to get 2 Tom Holland movies back to back. So they are making that. I think that's interesting that they're still moving forward with Uncharted before Spider-Man. The one I'm most excited for, though, is Thor: Love and Thunder. To me, that is far and away my most anticipated movie out of the
I was working my way there, and and you know what? And that's just what Marvel is. There's not one movie that you can be. You could be hyped for all of them, and it's fine. And Thor for me, because of what Ragnarok did and what Taika did with Ragnarok and what he did
Taika and Chris.
And it's all Taika, exactly. I am super hyped, and I'm super happy that we're getting it closer than we were supposed to. It got pushed forward, and that's great news to me.
Well, Taika unlocked the humor out of Chris Hemsworth that's been sitting there and no one knew how to utilize until Taika came along, and it unleashed like this beast that Chris Hemsworth's never come back from. That's just further elevated his career. And I think it's one of the best Marvel films. You're going to bring back Tessa Thompson, bring back Natalie Portman, which is awesome. And then you're adding Christian Bale to the cast as the villain. I don't see how this film can't be your number one and most anticipated Marvel film. Like Thor: Love and Thunder is be great, but also shows that Doctor Strange 2, where it lies in the calendar, doesn't really matter continuity-wise because originally it's supposed to come out before Thor, now it's coming out after Thor. So it's really like, what's Doctor Strange mean? Originally they said that WandaVision was going to tie directly into Doctor Strange. Now, how soon is that happening? So there's a lot of questions around this Marvel shuffle right now, but I'm excited for it. And then a couple months after Doctor Strange comes out, we're getting Black Panther 2. Then 2 months after that, we're getting Captain Marvel 2. It's just everything on top of the next.
I feel like we've been waiting way too long for Black Panther 2. I don't know why. I feel like, Black Panther has been on hold, and I want to go back to that world. Are you one of the, I don't know how you feel about it.
I miss Guardians 3, man. That was supposed to be Black Widow,
That's true. That's right. Guardians 3, man. Jesus Christ. There's so many movies to look forward to, and there's other ones that are coming out that we're not even mentioning, which are, it's the Eternals is one of them.
Eternals. And Shang-Chi, which is in May.
Exactly. Which I honestly don't know a lot about that character. So I am looking forward to it, especially if they keep it with the whole martial arts aspect. I love all that shit. So,
I'm excited for most of these films because they're moving to a new phase. Marvel basically wrapped up their saga. Everything they've been building towards. They wrapped it all up. So now we're taking a new direction now. I'm excited what the future holds. So yeah, there was a lot of news this week, guys. A lot of shuffling going on. I'm sure it's not the last of it. Christopher Nolan's still holding on to Tenet in July 17th. Maybe that'll be the first one we can go back to theaters and see. I hope so. I really do. I'm pulling for it at this point. But
yeah, no, I was gonna tell you, how do you feel about that? Is that since you're such a Nolan fan?
We'll get to Nolan at some point. Let's move on to our movie of the week. Our movie. So every week we're gonna put a poll out for you guys to vote on. And this week with Extraction coming out on Netflix, you can watch right now. We decided to go with some action films, classic action films. And you had a bunch of selections out there. What did you have? You had stuff like Demolition Man and...
No. We didn't have Demolition Man. We're saving that for another one, remember?
Okay, we had The Last Boy Scout, though. We had
The Last Boy Scout. We had Con Air. John Wick. we had, bro, there was a lot of movies that we had.
Yeah.
We had John Wick. We had
He was
obviously.
on there. But you guys ended up going with a Keanu film that wasn't John Wick, which
Yeah.
I'm blown away by. You guys went with Point Break.
Yeah.
Now, Point Break. This movie has a beloved cult fan base. Yeah. It's a movie about a cop who goes undercover with a bunch of surfers that they believe are robbing banks. And this is the definition of the 90s. This 90s cheesy film. This is exactly what Point Break is. I want you to explain this to me. Why is this movie so beloved? Because I don't understand.
Okay. So I haven't seen Point Break in a very long time, and I know, and a lot of peers of my ears, especially with the Schmoedown people, that Bateman loves this movie.
I know.
He loves this movie, and I was watching. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I have seen it multiple times, but I think the last time I saw Point Break was maybe like 8 or 9 years ago, easy, And watching it yesterday, I couldn't help but laugh a lot at Keanu's acting. It's bad. Keanu's acting was so bad.
Yeah.
And even just besides Busey and Lauren Petty and Swayze, I thought the supporting cast was just not there. Like, even if you were in the scene for 2 seconds, and it's a Catherine Bigelow movie, which is even crazier because look what an acclaimed director she is now. I mean, it's 90 cheesy heist film. There's honestly not too much to it. I don't hate it. I didn't hate it at all. I grew up with it. I had this movie on VHS, so I would see it here and there. But I haven't revisited, like I said, in a long time. And I was just, I saw it with Steph. Steph ended up liking it because she ended up watching The Last Boy Scout. And she was, I don't think she liked The Last Boy Scout that much. But she ended up watching Last Boy Scout and watching this, and then she goes, Point Break is way better than, it's not better than Speed, which Speed is another one that we had 3 Keanu films. I just realized that. Yeah. We had Speed, Wick, and Point Break.
He's one of the biggest action stars ever. I mean, it makes sense. But this movie doesn't make sense to me.
I am an FBI agent.
So there's so many questions. I wrote down some questions as I was watching the movie. One of them, do you think Gary Busey always jumps into the pool like he does at the beginning of the film? With the jumping in. I feel like that's Gary Busey regularly getting in the pool.
But tell me you didn't like he was one of the better characters in the film, for me at least. Like, when I was watching, he was actually tolerable to watch. It was crazy to me because I don't remember Keanu. Like, everybody's like, they tell me, oh, Keanu Reeves is a bad actor. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because Bill and Ted, he had to act the way he did, right? So he was fine in Bill and Ted for me. Speed, he was fine in Speed. But again, I haven't seen it in a long time. Devil's Advocate, I saw that recently, and I think he's good in that film. Pacino outshines him, but he's still a watchable. And then obviously with the John Wick films and all that, so I'm like, I don't understand how people say that Keanu's a bad actor. Point Break is why. And
it's also Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's also the
reason. My God, yes. Funny enough, because while I was watching it yesterday, Steph saw Dracula, I think like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. One of the times that I was in here, I was with the kids. And she was watching, and then I remember I got home and she goes, have you seen Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, the movie's great. She goes, it is great. Not Keanu Reeves. She's like, he's so bad in that movie. And she loves him. Obviously, he's a national treasure. She absolutely loves him. She loves John Wick. For her, he's one of the greatest human beings walking this earth. And she's like, I hate that I saw this film, because now I'm like, dude, what the hell happened? And I think he did Dracula and Point Break back to back.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a rough back to back for him. But yeah, he's still one of the biggest stars. And then obviously he transitions into The Matrix, and then a film that a lot of people say is underrated, and Constantine. I think he's actually good in Constantine. So he's an actor who needs the right material and the right director. And I just don't think Catherine Bigelow knew how to handle him. Which is a shame, because it's also weird to look at Catherine Bigelow in this, because if you look at her films that she's been putting out recently within the past decade compared to this, you would think it's 2 different directors. at one end we got our cheesy action movie, and on the other end we have our serious war drama and Zero Dark 30 and the Hurt
Locker.
Locker. And then she follows it up with Detroit, which is a very intense movie to watch, which Point Break is not that at all. So I think it's weird to look back at Catherine Bigelow and be like, you did this movie? This is you? It's kind of like watching Spielberg's films at the beginning, like watching Jaws or Close Encounters, and now he's doing The Post and Lincoln.
Lincoln and all that, yeah.
So it's different. I have some other questions in here. Like, so Gary Busey cracks the case by looking at the tan lines of a guy's ass on camera.
Yeah.
Do you think Gary Busey's always looking at a guy's tan lines?
Probably, man. I don't know. I said the same thing when I was watching it. It's crazy because I feel like I've seen this movie so many. I almost didn't rewatch it. I'm like, I've seen this movie so many times. Don't really like. Not that I didn't care to revisit it, but I felt like it's pretty fresh in my. When you've seen a movie 2 to 3 times, you're fine, you know. And I've definitely seen this movie that many times, and I'm so glad I did sit down and watch it, because man, when I saw the whole, you see his tan line over here, I'm like, hell no, dude, come on, bro.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Come on, man.
Questions about Busey's character. After that, have you ever tried to play football at night? It doesn't work.
Football on the sand alone is a pain in the ass. Can you imagine at night with a little fire?
Those headlights for the trucks and stuff, that is not going to light it up. And now, when that football is in the air, it's going
to smack you in the goddamn face.
It's impossible. Something I really liked here's another thing that doesn't make sense. When one of the surfers has a bottle of lighter fluid, instead of opening the cap,
instead of opening it like that, he stabs it. We said the same thing. I'm like, why is he stabbing it? And I'm like, the only thing is that he wanted to fire quick. I don't know, man.
He just wants to be a tough guy. It's dumb.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Catherine Bigelow's handheld camera use in this film. Like when you first walk into the party and the camera's just moving back and forth to people.
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah.
And every time there's a group of people surrounding someone, she just moves the camera back and forth. I really like how she does that. Wes Anderson is someone who's used this technique quite a bit. So I really like that. Having sex on a beach, that is... it's not very safe. I can say that. Stuff gets everywhere.
I mean, I've been there. I'm not gonna lie. But sand gets everywhere. It's annoying.
It sure does. I mean, Anakin Skywalker's on something.
Yeah.
Do you think Gary Busey always eats a meatball sub the way he does in this movie? I'm picking on Busey a lot.
Yeah, no, you really are. And honestly, he's not the person to be picking on. He actually did his job.
He's not, but it's funny.
He wasn't like crazy Busey yet. Like he was still fine.
No.
You know, but I guess, dude, I don't know, man. Like I
thought it was funny watching him take a bite out of that. Just he's holding it like this, trying to eat it. Well, so this entire movie could have been solved if when they first see the robbers leaving the bank on their mask, when Busey and Keanu see it as he's trying to eat his meatball sub. If you just called for backup, you could have caught the guys, and they didn't call for backup at all. They caused an explosion at a gas station, and Keanu had to look like he tore his ACL.
The guy? Yeah, no, when he's running.
Yeah, like that looked like a torn ACL right there, and I'm just thinking to myself, why isn't anyone calling for backup? You could have surrounded this car by now or gotten this guy. But nope, we don't do that at all. So
Cowboys, man, they had to be Cowboys.
They're terrible FBI agents, the both of them. They're really bad at their jobs. Obviously, the most famous line, "I am FBI agent." Only Keanu can read the line that way. What else we got in here?
Can we talk about Swayze a little bit? I think he did a good job. He was. Okay. I don't remember Bodie being such a hippie, and doing everything for the cause. I don't know why I don't remember that. Him being that much of a hippie, but can you say how suave he is every time he would jump out of a plane? He was like a swan. Every time he jumped out of the plane, it was just like so stylish, you know. And then everybody else was like, nah, like, oh, you saw Busey jumping into the freaking pool. But everything he did, even when he was surfing, the hair thing, he was just very glamorous to look at, man. But I think I like seeing him as well, he was the villain in the movie, but
yeah, he's crazy. He's definitely crazy, but he's more of a reserved crazy. Like I got
crazy, and I love that. At the end, the whole once after the whole, you know, second bank robbery, the second bank robbery we see, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken, the torch one or the third one.
That's the second one.
Second, right? Yeah. So when that's all happening, and he obviously knows that, you know, Johnny Utah, that Keanu Reeves is the FBI agent, that he is an FBI agent. The way he's like, I know how to handle him, and then he takes him skydiving, all friendly, you know, you're having the experience of a lifetime, and then he takes him to the car. He's like, hey, this is just a little insurance, and he takes Keanu Reeves' girl. I thought that was.
This is my question. What was the point of them going skydiving in the first place? The first time they go skydiving. What was the reason behind that? Nothing. You could have shown him the videotape at his home.
Yeah. Well, the thing was is to make him, I guess, to make him feel comfortable. Like, I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest with you.
It's really, if you cut that out of the film and just have him looking at that videotape at home, you could have shortened the movie a little bit. Nothing's going to change. And then when they go skydiving in, you're like, okay, here's these extreme sports people doing it again. Yeah. Like when Keanu jumps out of that plane, I said, this movie is crazy. After him, like, you maniac. No one would ever do that.
Ever. So this was, we were watching it yesterday or 2 days ago. I don't remember. So we're watching it, and it's Steph's first time watching Point Break. She had never seen it. And she's watching it, and you see he jumps out of the plane. She's like, yeah, okay.
He jumps out that plane. And like, this is my thing too, why this movie doesn't hold up that well. If you would have just called somebody while on the plane, like the pilot's there. Does the pilot have a cell phone in there? Not a cell phone, but at the time, obviously, but like some kind of radio broadcast. Hey, there's these villains who just jumped out of a plane. These robbers that apparently have been robbing banks for what, there was a 3 or 30 years. It was like 30 banks in 3 years.
Yeah,
we have them right here. They just jumped out of a plane. You can surround them in the middle of this desert. Like, why can't no one phone him? Keanu says, no, I care about this girl too much.
I'm going to jump out of the plane with a gun, no shoots, and I'm going to get this guy.
Okay. Because of this girl I've only known for a month. Come on.
Yeah. I hated and loved that I revisited this because I had it up there with great action films. I think it's all a nostalgic thing.
It is.
Not that bank heist movies hadn't existed, but they were very charismatic characters, you know, and you care. It doesn't hold up there. I don't think it does either. And this is one of the things that I'm saying, that I feel like I will still hold on to that nostalgia of it and understand that it is a 90s film. But if you show this movie again, she liked it, but to someone that's being introduced to film and be like, oh, this was a craze back in the 90s, and they watch it, they're like, why? And it's the question why what you asked, why? One of the fuck, man, my mind went elsewhere.
I don't think people who love this movie could really explain in a good way why they love it so much. They would bring up the word cheesy, they'd bring up the word nostalgic, but I mean, do people even really care about surfing anymore? That's my biggest question coming out of this. Is like, is surfing even really a sport? Are we really going to make a movie out of surfing now?
Depends on you ask. When I was out in Cali and I went by the beaches, they were surfing, man. It is a thing. You know, I don't think we have anything down here like that.
No.
But maybe over there in Pacific, you know, they do.
See, one of the things on another podcast I listen to where they rewatch stuff is they ask about peaks, where we asked about an actor's peak or director's peak, someone, if this or whatever movie they were watching, if it's someone's peak. I don't think anyone peaks in this movie.
Hell no.
Not a single person. I was thinking Keanu, because this is a big film for him. No, Matrix and John Wick are much bigger for him. If you look at Swayze, this is not Swayze's best movie by far.
Roadhouse is better than this, and it came out before that. I would even give Ghost a pass over this. Ghost is a better film than Point Break. And I hate saying that. Like I said, I hate saying that because I did grow up watching this movie. But it didn't hold up for me yesterday. And it's crazy how films can do that because like I stated, I wasn't gonna watch it because I'm like, I've seen this movie a bunch of times. But I think had I not watched it and you attacked me with these questions, or like we didn't see eye to eye, I was like, what is he talking about? And then I don't know, man. It's yeah.
I'll throw in some others like this is not Gary Busey's peak at all. What the Buddy
Rookie of the
Holly,
year. Rookie of the year, bro.
Buddy Holly. I think those are his two right there. It's definitely not Catherine Bigelow's peak. I can tell you that. She's done way better. The only one I would give it to is maybe John C. McGinley, because him as the police commissioner, I don't know what his position is, but he has a couple scenes where he's just laying into Busey and Reeves, and those are my favorite scenes in the movie because he is unleashing and like destroying the character.
Is it his best role though? Because Scrubs, man. You know,
see, so it might not even be his.
And he plays kind of the same FBI agent a couple years later in Set It Off with Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett Smith and I was about to say Angela Bassett. What's her name? Vivica A. Fox. Vivica A. Fox.
See, so might not even be his. And it's really like I don't think anyone peaked in this movie. So
I mean, again. We are besides Swayze, we are mentioning things that they did after, which again, maybe at the time they're like, hey man, just I don't think Keanu ever got that. I think they're like, yo, this movie sucks, but it's entertaining. I mean, he sucks, but this movie's entertaining. Yeah. But I feel like everything we have mentioned is things that came out after. Like, when do you think Keanu peaked? Because I don't even think he peaked with Matrix. I think John Wick is right now. He's at a game right now. We
talked about his Keanu stunts right now, and you like you said, where you got your John Wick movies. He was in Toy Story 4 just this past year. He was in that Always Be My Maybe on Netflix, which people loved him for, and now he was in some video game where he popped up and everyone went crazy for him. And there, I think Keanu might still have more ahead of him right now. Like, you might even get better for him at this. I could see just how I feel like with Tom Cruise. I can see a movie in their future where they get some critical praise for it, like acclaim for it. They just need that right director to give them that material. So I think Keanu's best is still in front of him right now, which is amazing to think because he's had an incredible career up to now. Yeah. What's he working on right now? I know he's got John Wick 4 coming out, obviously.
John Wick, Matrix, and Bill and Ted, all sequels.
All sequels. That's all he's got right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as far as I know, remember the industry's kind of been shut down. But I think that's the only news I got so far, at least that has stayed with me. I know it's Bill and Ted, and I think they finished filming Bill and Ted.
That's coming out this year.
Yeah, so Bill and Ted, and then you got supposedly, which I called from the beginning, coronavirus or not, you got John Wick 4 and Matrix 4 coming out of the same day, which I don't see that happening at all now. Like, I didn't see it happening before, less percent now,
It can't. It's impossible. He's got SpongeBob coming out. I don't know if you saw that SpongeBob trailer where he was – there's a moment in the SpongeBob trailer where – they're talking to a tumbleweed, and then in the tumbleweed, you see the face of Keanu Reeves, and he talks to them. So he's just popping up everywhere right now. Like you said, yeah, he's got Matrix 4, he's got Bill and Ted, he's got John Wick 4, he's got a couple other movies. One's called Past Midnight with Rick Famuyiwa. There's nothing about it. It's just called Past Midnight with Rick Famuyiwa. That could be something. He's got.
That's a good collab. That's a good collab.
I like that. He's got one called Rally Car, which there's just a picture of him in a rally car race in China. That's it. And it's directed by Oliver Megaton. It's not Megatron, it's Megaton, he's done bad movies. Taken 2, Transporter 3, Columbiana. And then Rain, which is another Chad Stahelski movie. So which is the John Wick director. So
I like that combo.
They're working well together. Ever since The Matrix, they've worked well.
That's a good combo. And you know what's crazy? Saw a couple movies this week, revisited. I haven't seen any new movies this week, but I saw The Crow Crow is secretly one of my favorite movies ever.
Mm.
It doesn't make the top 10, but it's definitely in my top 15 because and I it's one of those films that again, that one I will defend to the end. I don't know if we revisited new eyes, whole Point Break scenario.
Mm-hmm.
If I show it to somebody new, if they'll feel about the film how I do. I can't say that I was a major Brandon Lee fan because that was the first movie I saw him in. I ended up seeing Rapid Fire, and he had another film that I still have. He has 3 films after I saw The Crow. But I saw The Crow recently, and you obviously know the tragedy that happened, that he died on set. There was so many rumors that I thought I knew how Brandon Lee actually died, and it
Mm-hmm.
was completely different. They even told me once when, growing up, that the scene where he gets killed, which is stupid for me to believe, even though that movie came out when I was a kid,
Yeah.
is in the actual film, that they kept it, which is total BS because I really started reading about it. And Chad, when Brandon Lee passed, Chad was the guy that finished the film.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when
Brandon Lee is one of those actors who's like, taken away too soon. Like he could have been one of the greatest actors ever. They say that he had that talent.
he had it, man. No, and the condition, and that movie was cursed. It was one of those. It's one of those cursed films. Production, the first day of production, I know a line, power line landed on a stuntman or something like that, or on a worker. A disgruntled worker rammed his car into one of the sets and destroyed the set. They had Brandon Lee because they had him working overtime and in a lot of rain, and because the movie's all dark. If you think about it, barely. I think there's 2 scenes in daylight. Other than that, it's all at night. So they were shooting it was shooting in the middle of the night, and most of the movie is in rain.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was apparently freezing, and his agent called and said, "You're killing Brandon Lee," not knowing that he was gonna die less than a month later.
Yeah.
And how the whole it was negligence. And I know we're going off the rails right now, but it was negligence.
So we're done talking Point Break. We really are.
Point Break was okay.
It
doesn't hold up.
Yeah, we're kind of over Point Break. I know this movie's beloved. I know people really, really hold on to it. Like Tim is in the chat, and he's been saying that he loves Point Break and that it's fun. Like Kyle described Birds of Prey. I say Birds of Prey is way more fun than Point Break. It's not as cheesy at all.
No, I still grab on. I accept the cheese from the 90s films, and that's why. And again, that's where I'll give Point Break the edge over Birds of Prey, but it's more nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cheese. I am expecting that from 90s. 90s knew how to action. Like, what you get in a typical 90s film. What you think about an action film, that's what the 90s brought to the table. I don't know if you've seen Face Off. Yeah. I know you haven't seen Con Air, but those movies are full of it, I'm kind of pissed off also that Con Air was getting there. It was getting the vote. It was in second place, and I was gunning for it. I almost told all my friends to please vote Con Air so you can watch Con Air.
We're done with the 90s cheese at this point. We've done 2 films of it.
We're gonna have to take a break on those. Did you see the new Point Break?
I didn't see the new one, and I heard that it's terrible.
I heard it's terrible, but I'm going to see so this can redeem itself a little bit, so I can shit on that one. But anyways, again, I didn't hate Point Break. I just felt like the acting was pretty rough, and there's a lot of decisions that were made in the movie where I was like, all right, why are you doing that? But this is seeing it from obviously my point of view now. Growing up, I loved this movie. I really, really loved this movie.
I don't need to see it again. I'm at the point where like it's just
one and done.
A movie that exists. They acknowledge it. But I'm tired. I don't need to see that cheese anymore. There's so many better things out there that I could be doing with my time. Point Break's not one of them. There's better Keanu movies, like we mentioned. Every other person in this movie, they have better movies. So I just don't feel like I ever need to go back to Point Break. But you were mentioning earlier a film that you thought was perfect, and The Crow. And earlier this week, James Gunn put out a tweet saying, asking everyone for their 5 perfect films. And I don't have his in front of me right now, But he was asking people, what are your 5 perfect films? And it became this big thing on Twitter where people kept responding and all these other big names contributed to it. So we decided that we wanted to talk about 5 perfect films from that we like to pick. These aren't necessarily our favorite films. These are films that we think could not be improved at all. These are films that the way they are made, they are perfect. They're masterpieces. And I thought this would be a fun topic for us to do. So how do you want to do this? You want to go 1-1 or do you want
whatever you want, whatever you want. Honestly, well, let's just roll with it, man. Whatever you want. You can start first if you want.
All right, so yeah, like I said, these aren't movies that are my favorite. These are movies that I really love. Some of them are some of my favorites, but
yeah,
these are movies that
most of these are my favorites. So they're not in my top 10, but they're definitely my like top 20.
But these are movies that I can acknowledge are like you can't really improve those. So I'll start with the big one right away. I'll start with Casablanca. I think Casablanca is one of the greatest films ever made. This one is in my top 5 of movies ever made. And I don't know, have you ever seen Casablanca? No. Oh, that's a blind spot you got to fill.
I was kind of like, God damn it, man. Start off this way. And I get shitted on for not watching this movie because there's not one person that has told me, oh, it's overrated. Everyone has told me what a great film. And I don't know why when I think Casablanca, I think like a 4-hour long movie, and I heard it isn't even that long.
No, not at all. So the first time I saw this movie was on a plane. I was on a Delta flight, and they have a whole library of movies to choose from. And I just said, I saw Casablanca in there, and I said, you know what? It's time. Let's do it. This is the movie that has that old Hollywood feel to it that's a magic. You know, it has that magic feel where you're like, I can understand why people loved going to the movie so much, why people loved being a part of the movie so much. And Casablanca just holds that. Humphrey Bogart and it's Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, I believe it was. They're perfect together. One of the best love stories ever made. And it's about how this woman comes back into this man's life that she used to be in a relationship with and left one day, and now all of a sudden she's back looking to escape the Nazis who are hunting them in this bar that Humphrey Bogart owns, and has to decide, do I want to bring her back into my life and help her escape with her new beloved, or do I say, screw you, go ahead and get caught by these people? It's an amazing movie. Some of the best shots ever made. It's got some of the best lines ever made. I'm sure you know, like, here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Before. This is the movie I tell people to watch if they're thinking of watching old movies or they're hesitant to watch old movies. I say start with Casablanca, and then you'll get it. So to you, man, watch Casablanca because I think this is one.
I'll watch it this weekend, if not early next week. But it's on my queue.
Yeah.
And every time, and I don't know, and I've seen the Hitchcock black and whites. I've seen 12 Angry Men. I've seen some classics. I've seen some good ones. Casablanca, I don't know, and I probably am thinking of Gone with the Wind because that's another one I haven't seen. But I think Gone with the Wind is there's one that's just so long that I don't want to invest the time, and I keep thinking it's Casablanca for some reason. I keep thinking that movie's like eternal. And
it's probably Lawrence of Arabia is what I'm mad.
And you know what? I've seen that and Ben-Hur. Imagine that. Yeah, but I saw those as a kid because my grandfather loved those movies. He loved Peter O'Toole and whatever. Anyway, but yeah, I'll definitely check that out, man. And I've been meaning to. I'm telling you, it's on the queue. I have like 6 movies on the queue, and that is one of them where I'm like, I have to get to this. I cannot call myself a film buff critic, what have you, if I have not seen Casablanca. It's like it's shame. Yeah, when you mentioned, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, we all have our major blind spots. Watch this week and then come back on the show next week and we'll talk about it a little bit more.
For sure.
What's your first pick?
I don't have them in any order. I just wrote them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, me too. So just like pull one out.
First movie that I put on my list is actually Goodfellas.
Okay, Goodfellas.
We can both talk about this because I know you've seen that. But for me, there's no better gangster film, in my opinion. And I love The Godfathers, and I don't want to shit or anything on The Godfathers 1 and 2. I will shit on 3 all day. But I even think that The Godfathers I was trying to not even think out of the box because, Goodfellas is not really thinking out of the box. But when it comes to films, Scorsese films, for me, this is his best. He hasn't topped Goodfellas for me. And he has quite the filmography. The acting from everybody, the camera work, cinematography, everything about, and it's just a story that from the moment it starts with three guys in a car. Mm-hmm. They hear a thump. They check the trunk. There's this guy bleeding. Pesci starts, just stabbing, killing this guy. You're like, what the hell? And the first line in that movie is, "All my life, I wanted to be a gangster." Yeah. And it's just boom. It just starts off. It shows you, the street corner guys, the way he was looking up to them with the suits and then becoming one of the guys, explaining what a made man is. The lines where, De Niro's telling him, "You never rat on your friends." Like, it's just all these things where I saw this movie really young, where I was just sucked into this world. And I don't think there's a dull moment in that film. It is not boring whatsoever. Because some of these movies, even The Godfather has its moments where you're like, all right, man, get to where we're going. Yeah, let's move on. I don't think Goodfellas has that. Goodfellas.
I'm with you. What the reason why I think Goodfellas qualifies for this list is because it makes most other movies look inferior. You look at, that's why I didn't like The Irishman that much, honestly, because it felt like it was trying to be Goodfellas, and it's not anywhere close to Goodfellas, in my opinion. I know people love The Irishman. I think it's nowhere close.
I like The Irishman. I haven't gone around to revisit it. I only saw it that one time in the theater, and obviously I have it right upstairs. Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend wants to see it, and every time she's like, "Do you want to watch The Irishman?" I'm like, "Not now, not today." I'm like, maybe we if we started like at 9 a.m. and it doesn't take up most of the day, mm-hmm. I'm like, one day like that. And that's also, which we're getting off the rails, with Lord of the Rings. I started watching Lord of the Rings with her, and we ended up getting to the Two Towers. We saw half of it, but it was getting so late, and I'm like, we can't finish this right now. And we paused it, but I haven't gotten around back to revisit because it's long and it takes up a lot of the day. Yeah.
You have to plan your day around seeing that movie. And so getting back to The Irishman, I think The Goodfellas does everything The Irishman wants to do better, just way better. You look at the whole gangster storyline.
And the storytelling, the stuff narrating and all that stuff.
Same thing. And it's done way more consistently and cleanly in Goodfellas than it is in The Irishman. I would, for Scorsese wise, Wolf of Wall Street's my favorite one. Yeah. I don't know if he'll ever top that, but no one's going to argue that Goodfellas isn't. So I think that is obviously a great choice there. I'm going to switch to something now that's more recent. I'm going to throw in a sci-fi movie. And this movie is by my favorite director.
I know where you're going.
It's Arrival.
Yeah.
I think Arrival is a perfect movie. I feel like I've brought in this movie up every single week we've done this show. Denis Villeneuve, like I said, this guy was on a roll with Sicario, and he had that Prisoners, and now he's come out with this big sci-fi movie, which I don't remember if you saw the trailers, but seeing those big pods landing all over the world, you're like, ooh, this is going to be a fun alien invasion movie. And it's not. I just wrote a paper on this for my film.
I'm glad I kind of got the heads up. I'm glad I got the heads up that it was, because I didn't see it opening weekend. I got the heads up that they're like, it's not Independence Day. They're like, this is a smart alien movie. They're like, it's all dialogue, but it's great. And I was like, okay. So when I went into that mentality, it even blew my mind because I thought it was going to be boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
It's not. It's so fast. I've been introducing this to everyone I know, this movie, and they all love it. And it's because this movie is about communication and talking to each other. How if we just work together in anything in life, we'll get more accomplished. Look at what we're going through right now with the coronavirus. If we worked together and didn't lie to each other and didn't mislead each other, we would be solving these issues. Like in the movie, there's a moment where China learns something and they get so spooked by it, they turn off their communication with the rest of the world. And then like Russia follows suit and Sudan follows suit, and then everybody follows suit. And suddenly no country is communicating with each other. And these aliens are offering, they say, offer tool or offer weapon, and everyone's misinterpreting it. And then eventually Luis finds out like, hey, if we just combine all of our stuff, we will solve what these people, what these aliens are offering us. And to me, it's a movie about how we're so bad at talking to each other, and that if we just fix that, the world would be such a better place. And you see in this film that the world becomes a better place. You learn about time travel. It's not really time travel though. It's more of perceiving time as not linearly as oh, what's the word for it? But it's like a circular thing. So you can perceive the past and the future at the same moment. So I think this is Denis Villeneuve's best film. I think this guy is just on a roll with his movies right now, and Arrival is one of the best sci-fi films to me ever made, and it's only going to grow in my estimation.
No, I agree with you 100%. And the ending killed me.
It's at the beginning of the movie, you see her playing with her kid, and you're like, oh man, she lost her kid. She's even had her kid yet, which is amazing.
It's so mind blowing to me. Exactly. I was like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely adore that film, and it's one of those that doesn't come up, and I would put it under an underrated category. 100%. I don't feel like not enough people, and some people really don't like it. They said that that was completely overrated, and I just don't feel like they got it.
Because they were expecting an alien invasion movie, and that's not what this is. So the eeriness is something I love so much. When she first walks into her college beginning day, and there's not really anybody in her class, and then the kids are just like, turn the TV on, and you see just the pods, and she's walking out, and the jet goes flying over. It has that feel like if pods landed on Earth, suddenly the world would just stop. Like there's a subtle moment where she's getting in a car, and two cars bump into each other just as she's trying to get out of the parking lot, because people don't know how to feel during this moment. So it's fascinating to me. I think it's Amy Adams' best movie. It's Denis Villeneuve's best movie so far, and I think they've only got better to come. So.
Oh man, I don't know, man. It's crazy to me because he has so many great films.
He could do a list like this on his own.
honestly, because I can tell you, hey, you know what? I think I enjoyed Sicario, even though they're two completely different films. But I think Sicario could be a better film. But then you go back and think about Prisoners also, and they all can fit this category. Like he is honestly such a. Have you seen Enemy? Right?
Yes.
Because not a lot of people have. That's why. And Enemy is another one. Enemy is probably the bottom tier of his films, and it's still a great film.
It's fascinating. You can see the beginnings of a director who has a lot to say.
Exactly. So I agree.
Blade Runner. You still got to see Blade Runner.
I know. I think that again, it's the only one that I think I'm missing. All right. So this next one is a movie that I actually saw recently, and it's a '90s film, and I didn't think too high. Not that I didn't think too highly of it. It's a classic, but revisiting it, it had the opposite Point Break effect. So I revisited Point Break, and I was like, ugh, it's okay. And this one I revisited, I'm like, God damn, this movie's good. It's just stuck with me that I had to put it on the list, and it's Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs for me, it acting wise, everybody is. You got obviously you have your Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter. Scott Glenn's in the film. Who plays? I always forget this guy's name, and I hate this. Who plays Buffalo Bill? Oh
boy, let me bring it up.
I feel so bad right now.
It's been so long since I've seen this movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a while. Buffalo Bill is. I can't pull it. I can't pull it. But anyways, keep going. I'll look it up.
All right. So yeah. So for me, it is the. How do I say this? It's just a perfect character arcs where you see Clarice from the beginning of the movie, the conversations that she has with Hannibal Lecter, the way he picks her brain, the way he fancies her, everything.
Ted Levine.
Yeah, and he was fantastic as Buffalo Bill. But just anything, and the thing for me also is that I'm a big thriller person. I love horror and thriller and all that. And this date, again, and I always do these puns, bro, unintentional, but it was tastefully done. It really was tastefully done. It wasn't, and I remember when this movie first came out, my mom had rented it, and it was one of the only movies that she told me, you cannot see this. You cannot watch this film. And I thought, and I was like, why? She goes, oh, it's a horror movie. So obviously, as a kid, when you think horror movie, you're thinking blood, guts, the whole nine, and it wasn't that at all. You know, when I finally got around to it, I was a little bit older, and I'm glad I didn't see it that young because I wouldn't have gotten the film. I feel like I would have felt like it was a little bit boring, but just overall, just a story that it's another one that just from the very beginning, man, it just grabs you and you want to know. And you have this rookie cop that has all the promises of being something great, and they put her on this case, and he at the same time is using his the whole being a psychiatrist and picking her brain and giving the way he would give kind of like little hints there, and kind of laughing at the FBI face while he's still trying to help them out. I think this for me is his best role. It is Anthony Hopkins' best role. And obviously he won an Oscar for it. As did I think she won best actress as well. This was one of the films that it won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor. I think it won.
Oh, it's one of those clean sweep ones.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it is. But revisiting it lately, and it holds up. It's a movie that you can pop in now. It holds up. It was her first time watching it as well, and she was blown away by it. She's like, I didn't think this movie was going to be as good as it is, and it stands the test of time.
It really does. And if you go back and look at the Oscars and you think it's just incredible that the Oscars would reward a film that's like this, a horror film, at the time where the guy he's a cannibal and he's
eating people's faces.
Yeah, and that's what we gave Best Picture to, and it's well deserved.
There's literally a scene the first time she visits Hannibal Lecter, and he kind of dismisses her, and she's walking out. There's a guy who jerks off and throws it in her face.
Yeah.
And I remember Seth's like, did they really do that? I'm like, yeah, that just happened. And it's crazy because the Oscars doesn't really pay attention to films like this, exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
And it's swept.
It's crazy. So I'm going to take it in a completely different direction now. I'm going to throw us back way old school. And this is by one of my favorite directors ever, Frank Capra. And I'm not going to go with the classic one. I'm sure there's like 5 films that he has that you could do. I could easily go with It's a Wonderful Life, which would definitely fit into this conversation, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I don't know if you've ever seen this one.
Nope.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was released in 1939, which is one of the greatest years in cinema history because it was also up against at the Oscars, The Wizard of Oz, and Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind, yep.
And the stuff like The Grapes of Wrath also came out that year too. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's very timely now because it's a movie about a guy who's chosen to be a congressman. And he goes to Washington thinking he's going to make this big change in the country. He's going to lead this initiative to help people. And he gets to Washington and finds out that is not what it's like there, that people are corrupt, that they have their own intentions, and they're all working for these big businesses. And it stars Jimmy Stewart, and Jimmy Stewart's he kind of learns that it's not what I thought life was going to be like here. I thought I was coming here to make a difference, and I said I'm working for these big businesses that are secretly controlling everything. And it's a shame because that's what's still going on today. And I know you haven't seen this film, but I'm sure you have heard of the scene. He does a filibuster at the end of the movie for 23 hours straight, where he's just talking and talking and talking, trying to convince people to take his side, that he's not everything's corrupt in Washington. And if you look at today's day and age, it's still corrupt, even as corrupt as it's ever been right now. I just think it's one of those very timely movies. Jimmy Stewart is incredible in this film.
Well, he's a great actor, man.
He's one of the best actors ever.
He's such a great actor.
Get brought up. I know I'll get a lot of crap for this. Whatever. I don't care. I'd rather watch him than Brando. I think if you look at who as also a better
Brando has some snoozers, man. Brando has some boring movies, dude. So I can get behind that. I haven't really seen a really boring Jimmy Stewart movie, to be honest with you.
And he's a very likable person.
And he's very entertaining to watch. Yeah, dude. I can get behind that. I know Brando is, he's great. You can't take that away from me. He's a great actor, but I think I have more fun besides Brando's like classic films like Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. I can get behind way more Jimmy Stewart movies than I do a Brando.
You can name off almost any great Frank Capra movie. One I just saw the other day was You Can't Take It With You, which is another one I highly recommend. It fits today's genre so perfectly. But Jimmy Stewart's the star in that. He's the star in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He's the star in It's a Wonderful Life. Then you look at his Hitchcock films. You got Rear Window and you got Vertigo. So this guy was just one of the best. He needs to get brought up more when we talk about the best actors ever. But Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, that filibuster scene, which takes up about a half hour of the movie, is one of the best scenes I've ever seen in cinema history. I highly I recommend checking this one out. It gets overlooked because 1939 was an incredible year, and it didn't win at the Oscars, even though it was nominated. It ties in today so well, so please go check out Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I think that's a perfect movie.
Bro, awesome. What am I gonna jump? I'm not gonna mention that one yet because that's gonna be controversial. So my next movie, and it's another horror thriller. As you know, obviously I love these films. Seven.
Okay, I thought you were about to take one of mine off my list, but go ahead.
Seven, man. Seven for me. It's and again, I'm gonna sound super redundant with what it can arguably be one of Fincher's best. I know, obviously, you have Social Network on the very top of that list, but it kind of Fincher and Villeneuve for me kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
They are, it's incredible. They have incredible work, even though Fincher has weaker films. Villeneuve doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going back to Alien 3 and things like that. But for me, this is a movie that I saw in the theater and I got scarred.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those films that stuck with me. It was 95. Dude, I was 9 years old when this movie came out. All right. And I was sitting in the theater watching it. Again, my mom, boundaries. And just that opening scene when they go in there and it's the really fat guy, the gluttony one. Mm-hmm. And that they were saying, and it's just little lines that always like stuck with me. How he was taking metal, shaving off metal and feeding it to him, and so he can scratch the interior. It's just a very disturbing movie. And even the credits, the opening credits, how twisted everything was, and you see a guy peeling off his fingerprints, everything like that. And then you have your Brad Pitt, which again very charismatic, and he plays that Coño, bro. I'm drawing blanks with names. I know Somerset. I know is Detective Somerset. I know is Morgan Freeman, and I can't get Brad Pitt's name, but whatever. But you have Morgan Freeman in the film. You have Arlie Raymond in the film, which he usually plays. Well, he's the one that plays in bro, am I drawing a blank? Oh, Full Metal Jacket. The drill sergeant, and he's the captain in this.
Arlie Emery.
Yeah.
Arlie Emery. Yeah.
No, I said that. I don't remember Brad Pitt's character's name, man. Mills. Detective Mills. It just came to me. So yeah, but having them trying to solve, and every single murder in this film was just done. And you know what's crazy? The movie's not as graphic as we think it is. Because there's barely any. There's some blood in the film, and and the deaths are actually post everything happens. You don't actually see any of the murders really happen once they figure it out. Once they get there, it's when they're trying to figure it out. And it's one of those films that the less they show, the scarier it gets, because my mind wanders. There's a scene which is the lust scene, which always sticks with me, where he tells the guy where he puts a strap on the guy with I think it's a knife, and he puts the guy at gunpoint and tells him to have sex with the woman. So, and he's just killing, and you don't see any of that, but your head starts wondering. You're like, what the hell?
Well, and even the most graphic thing you think about it, in the end of the movie, That is probably the most graphic image you see in your head, but you don't actually see it with the what's in the box moment.
Yeah, though. Oh, and that's one of the greatest movies in cinema. The ending of the film, the way everything ends, how the bad guy wins.
Yes.
And one thing you will know about me is, I like sad endings in films. I like realistic endings, and not every. We live in a world where obviously not everything's good news, but there's a lot of film, and that's one of the things that stayed with me, like with La La Land or something like that. Like, I like how realistic a lot of these endings are. I mean, I like realistic endings. And Seven did that to me, because at the end, yes, and again, the movie came out a long time ago, so you find out who John Doe is. It ends up being Kevin Spacey, which did phenomenal, and I hate that he did what he did, because he's such a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I stay clear from his films, because even watching Seven now, I'm like, man, I saw Seven and The Usual Suspects back to back recently.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, he's such a great actor,
It's a shame that he turned out to be who he is. Yeah.
It really does suck. But him being so smug and knowing, because they're Detective Mills is throwing in his face like, I got you. You're done. I win. You lose. And he already knew what he was gonna. And then when you find out that he actually kills his pregnant wife and gives her head in a box, just the acting from Brad Pitt, man, when he's just there pointing the gun at him, and he's crying but angry. That whole, I don't know what the hell's in the box, and then he ends up killing the bad guy and he gets locked up, right? He goes to jail.
Yeah, he gets locked up. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he goes to jail, and the bad guy ultimately wins. That for me, man, that movie till this day, and it's crazy, like I said, because Fincher has so many great films, but nothing. And I always flip it between Social Network, Fight Club, Seven, but I think Seven usually stays at the top of my list for best Fincher films.
So I was really close to putting Seven on my list, or not Seven, Social Network on my list, but that was kind of replacement in case you took one of mine. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you mentioned Fincher, because Fincher deserves to be on this list. The guy is just incredible. Every film he does just it's so interesting, and I can't wait for later this year. He's got a Netflix film coming out called Mank. That's about the guy who wrote Citizen Kane. So that's gonna be interesting. The one I went to next, I'm gonna bring it back to more current now, is a horror thriller also, which is why I was scared you're gonna take mine. I went with Get Out. Get Out is an example of a perfect movie. It's a movie that you can watch the first time, be like, okay, this is a really good horror movie. And then you can watch it again. You're like, okay, this is a really good social satire. And you watch it again. You're like, okay, this movie's saying a lot about racism in this country. And it's like, okay. And then you watch it again, and you're picking up
You're always picking up something different. It's the same thing. I tell my friends that you got to see that movie at least 5 times. And 5 times you'll catch something different.
Yeah, it's
like your a little light bulb will turn on. Boom! Every time you watch that movie.
And the thing is, like, the one that I found out last time, which I missed completely, is in the opening when they hit the deer. You can see how much of a sociopath Rose is immediately, because someone was talking about how someone I listened to was like, I hit a deer once with my girlfriend when we were driving, and it was like the end of the world happened. Everyone was freaking out. I felt so scared. And in this movie, when they hit the deer, she has no emotion at all. It's just like, move on, we're doing fine. And that's where I pick up that, and I pick up how she didn't want the cop to have his license, because then there's a paper trail leading him back there. Like, I didn't know that going in.
Yeah. I picked all that up. The cereal, did you pick up the cereal? A lot of people didn't pick up on the cereal. The separation with the milk, that was awesome.
That's crazy. And then there's also the that picking cotton saves his life. When he's scratching the armchair and then pulls out the cotton. It's just, every time you watch it, there is something else you can throw in there. Like, damn, they thought of that. Damn, they thought of that. And to think that this movie has 2 endings, and one of the endings was he actually goes to jail. That it ends bad for him. That even though you got rid of this family, your life's over now too. She still ended your life.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary. And then also, they're like, oh, never mind. Let's not do that, because I feel like people need a hero. That Jordan Peele said people need a hero. And this was before Trump was even elected. And that Rod Williams comes stepping out. And Rod Williams is the ultimate sharpshooter in this film. He shows up for a couple of scenes and steals it. Yeah, he is amazing in this film.
Every time, because one of my best friends worked TSA. He's up in the ranks now. He's going to do he's going to be in ICE now.
Yeah.
But every time I would see him, because he would come over like after work or whatever, and every time I would open the door, that would be my greeting to him. Every time. TS motherfucking A.
Everyone is firing on all cylinders. Even like Daniel Kaluuya, who we really did not know who he was going to this. Everyone knows who he is now.
Breakout film, man. That was his breakout film, hands down.
You would never know he's British either. Because
I had no idea. I had no idea about that.
What would you say is your favorite scene in the film? Because I know we could all talk about this.
Yeah, I can talk about the movie all day. To be honest with you, I love it so much, dude. I'll
tell you mine is when he's trying to get out of there, and she's trying to go along with him. And he's like, Rose, just give me those keys. Just give me those keys, Rose. And she's like, I'm trying. I'm looking around. And then finally, when
the reveal
happens, and he's like, just give me those keys, Rose. She goes, I can't give you those keys. She's holding them in her hand the entire time. And he just drops his stuff. And he's like, damn it. I was hoping that you wouldn't be bad, but you are terrible too.
Someone was great in this. And I think he's such an underrated actor. Because the first film I ever saw, it's Caleb Landry Jones.
Yeah.
The first time I saw him as Banshee, that's I think the first role that I've seen him in as Banshee in X-Men. He's fine, whatever. But he has quite the filmography. He was fantastic.
That year was amazing for him.
Yeah, he did. What did he do? He did 3 Billboards. He did Get Out.
The Florida Project was the other one.
Florida Project. He did American Made with Tom Cruise.
He was just he shot out of a cannon that year.
But for me, Breakout. Get Out I loved him in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I loved to hate him in that movie because he was a son of a bitch.
He's every lacrosse player you went to high school with that you feared what their life was secretly like outside. It's like there's something not right with you, the way that the way you talk, the way you move, your actions. You're like, there's something wrong with this guy, and he's the personification of that. Let's talk about Jordan Peele, though. I mean, Jordan Peele is the star of this movie. I've not seen a directorial debut like this since.
I'm sorry. I love the party scene a lot. Like,
okay, just talking about people.
Yeah, the whole dialogue from everybody, and then they're trying him to his face, basically, like, with the little jabs that they do, and just his suspicion, because you can feel like he's a little uneasy with everything, and then just the way he would look around and try to strike up conversation and get denied quickly. I really loved how it was shot, everything about that scene a lot. That's actually. I was interested in the film, but once they got there, it really grabbed me, and I was like, "Oh, we're in for something crazy." Because funny enough, I went into that movie blind. I didn't see a single trailer watching that movie. I just heard the hype. The Nobodies had just started when that movie came out, and I think it was Ralph or Claudio. I think it was Ralph. Got to see it for a screening. And he was praising it. And he goes, I don't even want to tell you what it's about, especially if you haven't seen a trailer. And he goes, it comes out this Friday. I got up really early in the morning, dropped off the kids in school, called my cousin. I'm like, hey, you want to go watch a movie? He's like, is it Get Out? I'm like, yeah. He's like, hell yeah, because he's a big horror fan. So we both went, and we were both that movie ended, and I wanted to see the next showing again because I loved it. I'm like, this is such a great film. So, and
it's a great theater experience too. Like the first time seeing it with people, and when they start, I remember when
they start catching up, you hear the oohs and ahs in between.
Yeah, man. He starts looking through the photos of her with all these other boyfriends, and everyone in the crowd's like, "Oh no, oh damn it!" It's crazy. So I think that's probably the most recent example of a perfect film. I mean, maybe there was a couple other ones these past 2 years, but I think Get Out's just that's going to sit in history as one of the best debuts ever, and a film that we're going to look back and be like, okay, Shape of Water is good, but Get Out is way better. What are we doing?
I don't think Shape of Water holds up. I think Shape of Water is great with a one-time viewing. I tried to see it. I saw it, loved it, and then saw it again, and I'm telling you, within a span of 2 or 3 weeks, I saw it for the second time, and I didn't love it. I felt like it really did drag, and I didn't felt like it. It's crazy because usually movies drag the first time you watch them, and the second time they move a lot faster.
Mhm.
This one didn't. It had the opposite effect on me. I felt like Shape of Water, and it's still a great film, a good film. But I felt like it does drag the second
It's
time.
one of those we're gonna look back and be like, why did we not give it to Get Out? Why was Get Out not picture winner? Bless you. All right. What is your?
But you wanted to talk about Jordan Peele quickly. We can't ignore the man that made this perfect film, man.
I mean, listen, his first time out, he is now all of a sudden one of the top 5 must-see directors out there. Like, if he's putting out a movie, you're gonna go out and see it. He's up there with your Nolans, with your Finchers, with your now another woman out there, Greta Gerwig. Like, just these people that if they're putting something out, you're gonna be like, okay, I want to see this. And he did that in his first movie. So I think
his first movie, I know, and it's crazy the anticipation that Us had.
Yeah.
Us didn't hit me like Get Out, but I still think it's a great film. I don't think a lot of people do for some reason. I think they give it a lot of shit. I think it is a great film. It just wasn't. I think it was nowhere near Get Out's caliber.
Yeah.
You know.
What's your next pick?
Next pick, you're gonna laugh at me, man. But this is more between the favorite. I'm more of a favoritism, and I know we shouldn't be doing that, but I honestly think this movie is perfect in every way. I know it has a plot hole in it, and I think you know where I'm going with this. But I don't care. Back to the Future.
Oh.
For me.
Okay. Right.
I know I do. The last two you're gonna grunt. I'm telling you right now. I still haven't told you my Nolan film.
Oh man.
But it's a movie with me, man, that I don't know if I think it's probably is more on the favoritism side, but there's nothing to better this story for me. I care deeply about every single character in this movie. I love Marty. I love Doc. I don't care how they became friends because everybody's like, how the hell did this old ass man and this young kid from high school become friends?
Bother me either.
It doesn't bother me. It's just there's something, and it's crazy because I love like the 50s era and old school look and the production design in that movie, how they turned that town over and over again. Every time, and you know, I'm gonna kind of slide into Back to the Future 2 and 3, but I am mentioning one. How every time you see Hill Valley, it's exactly how you imagine, just you know, futuristic, or it's the Western, or you know, the 50s. Every time they would go back to the 50s, I just love the way everything. The set design in that movie is one of the things that I love the most. And just the story on its own, man. Just you know, this kid, this doctor creates something that all of us want. You know, if I can tell you, hey, we have a time machine, would you want to go and play with this thing? You're gonna tell me, yeah. You know, not 10 out of 10 times, you're gonna tell me, let's see what's up. But all right, go ahead.
So yeah, what I want to say is, I think entertainment value wise, yes, this is a perfect movie. It's rewatchable. It's so inviting that you want to be a part of this world, that you care about Marty immediately, and you want to grab the back of trucks and skateboard with them. The reason why this isn't a perfect movie to me is all these plot holes. The time travel makes zero sense in this film, especially when you go back and you watch these other films that talk about time travel. Anything where you're like going back to the past to change the future, it doesn't hold up as well. So you're
gonna quote Endgame? Back to the Future was bullshit.
I think Endgame is a better example of time travel. I think Arrival is the best example of time travel. But the thing that doesn't hold up for me, which it probably didn't hold up the day it came out, was his mom trying to bang him.
Oh my god, bro. Okay, man. I get it. I know. It is disturbing, man. And even me as a kid, I was like, is that his mom? Like, what was going on? As a kid watching this movie. But again, yes, she doesn't know who he is, man. It's not that it's a plot. She doesn't know who the fuck he is.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
knows.
yeah.
Now, if he would have gone with it, obviously it would have been completely different. But she doesn't. She has no idea who he is. He is a total stranger. Obviously a looker back then, so he was an attract. It was between him and George McFly. You're gonna take Marty McFly all day. But I don't see. It's weird, but I don't see that it's a plot hole or anything like that because she has no idea who he is. Now, the plot hole that everybody is talking about is how do they not know who he is because he went to the past, he gets them together. He was obviously a big part of why they got together, and then 30 years down the line you have a son that looks identical to the guy that got you together. How is that not even a little weird? And it's funny because
that too. The screenwriter came out and said and explained why. He's like, well, he was around for what, 3-4 days, and then
6 or 8 days around there.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where when did he say that?
So when this 5 perfect films came out, Back to the Future was named by quite a few people, and people started arguing that plot hole. And a screenwriter finally came out and said, listen, this guy only existed for a couple of days in this timeline, and then he's gone. There's no pictures of him. There's no records of him. You really going to remember his face for that long?
No. And it's crazy because us, like living now, there's hundreds of people that we went to high school with. And we had, I'm sure that you got invited to a party, talked to a person one time, or you haven't talked to them since graduation. Your memory gets a little hazy.
Yeah.
So that's all he said. That's great. That's great. But that's always been one of my things. I'm like, they're not going to remember him. Like he was around for a freaking week, And
so
then
one of the things that doesn't work for me, well, it's a great plot tool, but it makes zero sense, is the fact that he keeps disappearing from the photo that he has of his family. Like it's just him slowly disappearing from it. It makes zero sense. Like, okay, so if he's not there, the parents are just going to take a picture of them standing with empty space and a tree in the background or a swing set, whatever it was.
Oh man, the picture was going to disappear too. It's not going to exist.
It's a weird thing, but it works for the movie. Back to the Future, it's a good call. I mean, there's stuff they can poke holes in, obviously, but you can argue with the legacy this film's left and the entertainment value. So I think I'm not going to fault you for that. I'll probably fault you for your next one, but this one
you are going to fault me for my next one. 100%.
I'm going to go with my last one real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I know we're probably going to have a big debate for your next one. My last one is, I debated a little bit, like, oh, what should I do for this last one? What movie still holds up that's relevant? I went with the older film. I went with 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men to me is a perfect film. If you just pitch the idea of 12 jurors arguing in a room and not leaving, and that's
not leaving, exactly,
that you would be like, that's not going to work.
It sounds boring. That's why it took me so long to watch it. I'm like, what is it about? They're like, it's 12 guys literally arguing in a room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that does not sound appealing whatsoever. I will put this to the side. But it kept being brought up. And I'm like, I'm going to sit down and watch this movie. And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where, like I mentioned with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, it holds up today, and it's always going to be relevant. The idea of innocent until proven guilty, and that's the whole reason that the court of law was established, like juries were established, was to give everybody who's accused of a crime a fair chance of proving themselves innocent if they did not commit the crime. And it still slips through the cracks today. You see so many cases where someone is in prison for the wrong reasons, that they didn't commit the crime that they're in prison for. And this movie shows why it's important to listen to the evidence, to break down the witness testimonies, and to think about, would this person actually do this? To really think about the evidence. And you see so many different personalities in there. You have the people who just want to get out of there, like, this guy's clearly.
Yeah, no, it is what it is, and that's it. Let's go have the steak dinner.
Yeah. I want to go to one guy wanted to go to a baseball game. He had tickets for. And then you see this one man slowly convince everybody that, no, this is not what the way you guys think it is, that there's something else here. And you see, there's so many person, like the guy who wants to go to the baseball game, the guy who's the racist, the old man who just wants to get out of there, the
Which is
business.
crazy that they had a racist in the jury, by the way.
At
You
that
know?
time, which is,
Yeah.
really incredible to think about nowadays. You can put that, I think every jury should have to watch this film before going into a court, because it's important to study the stuff. So that's why I think it holds up so well. I think it's a perfect film that you don't need to change a single thing about this movie.
You don't. And it is, again, one of these films that the way it would, I don't know how you would pitch this film, because exactly what you would say, I'll be like, I'm not greenlighting this. Like,
No.
what are you doing? But it had to be the script. Once they read that script, they're like, we got to make this like now.
Well, it's a play. It was a former play that they turned into a film, and that's even harder to convince, because I've seen so many films that are based off plays that don't work. Something like Fences, which is very well acted, it feels like a play, and it loses my attention. This movie never lost my attention
At all. And I want to say it's one of the first classics that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up there for me, because I don't think, like, again, and I haven't seen Casablanca or anything like that. Classic wise, it's in top 2, man. It's between that and probably, I don't know, man. I like some Hitchcock, man. Hitchcock has some good films.
It was hard not to put Hitchcock in there, but I think it was because Hitchcock has so many films that's hard to pick your favorite one. So, but yeah, 12 Angry Men is my last pick. I really love that film, and I think if you're talking about a perfect film, this definitely fits the bill.
Oh man, you're gonna be so pissed with me. So for me, can you take a guess of where I'm going? I already told you it was a Nolan film.
I mean, if you want to talk about perfect films, when people bring up Nolan, there's usually 2 that come up right away, and that's The Dark Knight and Inception. I think you're gonna go to Dark Knight.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, The Dark Knight, man. The Dark Knight is the godfather of comic book films, and I know you're gonna completely disagree with me.
I respect it. I respect it, what it is. It's my thing with Nolan, which we'll get to later. But tell me why Dark Knight's a perfect film.
Everything about it. We've said this countless times. It's one of the reasons why I kind of didn't want to put The Dark Knight, because we have talked about this film over and over and over and over and over and over again. But it set the tone and set the bar for what comic book movies are now. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't think that, again, acting wise, there's some questionable acting from Aaron Eckhart. There's some scenes where I don't really buy into some of the things that he does
really fast. His two-faced.
Yeah. So that's one of the few things that I can say is, and it's not enough to bother me. Again, I think this movie is perfect. But acting and directing and the story that we're going through, it's a very somber film. And it's funny, I was talking about it because I told you I was hanging with my aunt yesterday, and she was talking movies that she hasn't seen, and The Dark Knight actually came up. I'm probably going to watch it today because I'm going to make her watch it, because she saw Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and loved it. She thought it was messed up, but she's like, that's great. I'm like, you need to see The Dark Knight. Excuse me. But the way that it's more of the staple it did for comic book films. All right. I felt that the reason why we got our Logans and we got, I don't want to say Deadpool because Deadpool's nothing like that, but Logan for me is runner up. Huh? What?
No, like Deadpool's not in the same conversation.
No.
It's not inspired.
Excuse me. It was more Logan, and even your Avengers films. When you start working your way towards the Infinity War, the Infinity Saga. The somberness, like the whole, hey, there's stakes being lost here,
Mm-hmm.
Directing again with Nolan, love his direction, and you can't argue that what Ledger did was insane. I know everybody tries to do something different, but he, for me, is, and I get shit because I did grow up with Keaton and Jack Nicholson being Batman and Joker, but this guy took the cake for me. I think that he did just a phenomenal role. Obviously won the Oscar for it. The Dark Knight could have even been an Oscar nominee, the actual film, had they had that many slots open in the Oscar. And that's one of the reasons why now we get as many nominees as we do, because they couldn't nominate the Dark Knight and they changed that role right after.
Yeah. So my thing is, I think Nolan is the most overrated director working, and it's not a shot to him because of his quality of films. I think his films are all really good, most of them. The reason why I say he's overrated is because the internet lauds him as the greatest director ever made, and it's not even close. Most of his films have story problems. If you look at something like Inception, going to dreams and stuff, it's really good. It's really fun, but I get confused on whose dream are we in? Who controls the dream? Who gets to do it? Like one of the best moments of the movie is when Tom Hardy steps in front of Joseph Gordon-Levitt and says, "You must not be afraid to dream a little bigger." That's awesome. Where did he get that grenade launcher? Or like, did he dream that up? Is it his dream? What do we do? It's confusing when you really start thinking about it.
Yeah.
With The Dark Knight, it's the one I have the least problems with. But the problems I have, there's questions I have today that I still haven't been able to answer. Like, how come everything with Gordon faking his death and then coming back doesn't make sense to me at all? How come no one recognizes this guy with a fucked up face as a cop that's at the funeral for Gordon? How come no one recognizes that, hey, maybe that guy's a little crazy? You know, the two weirdest looking guys up there are probably the ones we should look out for. There's stuff about it that I have problems with, but I'm not going to argue that it's not a great movie. It really is. I don't think it's the best comic movie ever made, but I'm certainly in the minority there. I just think Nolan is a really great storyteller when it comes to spectacle. He loves, putting these big ideas in your head and putting them on.
All his films are events. Every single one of them, they are events. It's what you were saying with I forgot what the hell we were talking about this episode, where we were saying that when you mentioned Casablanca, how that is the reason why we go to the movies. Nolan, I know you. It's you for you. I think you have more of a grudge against him because of hype versus his actual work, because I think you do enjoy his films, but everybody overhypes what he does. And there was a time when BVS was coming out and everybody had Zack Snyder as the greatest director ever, calling him Zaddy and all that shit. And I was getting pissed at that. I was like, no, he's not. He's far from a great, from one of the best directors. But people kept, throwing that out there. And I started noticing that I was getting pissed off with Zack Snyder films. I'm like, this movie sucks. And it's not that. It's just the hype that they get behind that. I haven't seen Dunkirk. That's the only Nolan film I haven't seen. This
is my problem I think people have already decided, especially with Tenet, I think people have already decided that this movie's going to be the greatest movie of the year. He's going to win an Oscar for this. There's going to be his first Oscar. I think, in my opinion, Nolan's made 3 mediocre movies in a row. Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, and Dunkirk, all mediocre. They're not bad. I think Dark Knight Rises has a lot of entertainment value in it. Even though there's so many plot holes in it, I think that movie's a lot of fun to watch. Interstellar is a great spectacle. It's a lot of it makes you think a lot, and the concepts behind it are really interesting. I don't think it's done very well. And when Nolan, go ahead. I was saying, Nolan has he's always been, his films have felt very cold and put off, you're not really approachable films. And then when he tries to do something different with making love the central concept of Interstellar, it doesn't work that well. It feels like a guy who's trying it for the first time, just dipping his toe in the water, and it doesn't work as well to me. And then finally with Dunkirk, my biggest problem is there's no characters in there. It's just people walking around and running and trying to survive, which is great. But if there's no one for me to root for, to see that I want them to survive, then I've lost all interest in the film.
Yeah,
and it's just, I think Nolan has made 3 mediocre films in a row, and to praise him like he's the greatest person who's ever directed film, I think is insulting to a lot of other filmmakers out there. I feel like if he never touched Batman, would we be putting him in the same sentence as a Denis Villeneuve? or as David Fincher, I don't think we would.
Yeah, I have Nolan up there. Not my favorite because I love my Scorseses and my Spielbergs and my Finchers and my Villeneuves. So, but I do have him up there. I think he's an incredible filmmaker. But you did mention, I said the exact same thing. He made three mediocre films because The Dark Knight, for me, The Dark Knight Rises, again, it was kind of like an Age of Ultron hyped because I got to see that movie 2 weeks early.
Yeah.
So I had the super hype about, getting to see the movie early. But again, The Dark Knight being my favorite film of all time, I was disappointed with, with the movie halfway through where I'm like, we need to wrap this up,
Mm-hmm.
And it's my least favorite in the Dark Knight trilogy. For me, it's The Dark Knight Begins and then Rises.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the order for me. And you can even put Begins and The Dark Knight like right there because I think the Batman Begins is an excellent film.
Yeah.
And then with Interstellar, I didn't see it in the theater. I actually waited to see that, and once I did, I liked it a lot. But I haven't revisited that movie again. I've only seen it once. I thought The Martian was the better film.
Absolutely. Martian's so much better.
The Martian was the better film that year. But Interstellar had so much hype, and I had one of my friends the same thing. He saw it in the theater. He's like, "It's the greatest movie ever made." This and then that. I'm like, "Man, that's awesome." I just couldn't go see it. I had my kids. I was working. I didn't go to the movies as much back then. I tried to, but I just didn't.
Mm-hmm.
When I finally got it, I bought Interstellar when it came out on Blu-ray, and I played it as soon as I got home. I finished it. I liked it, but I was like, The Martian, I had way more fun with The Martian. Story-wise, acting-wise, everything about this movie was kind of dull.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. It's fine. But again, mediocre. And Dunkirk, I didn't see because of you guys. I still haven't seen that movie because all of you told me how it was, and I'm like, I'm not even going to waste my time, even though
the spectacle behind it is amazing of Dunkirk. The technicals, the score, everything that surrounds plot is great. It's not a good character movie at all. And people like to say, well, in war, that's what all guys are trying to do. They're not sitting around campfires and trying to talk about how their friends and their families trying to get home. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a movie. Like, I don't care if that's not what they do in war. In movies, this is what you have to do in order to engage the audience. And I was not engaged at all. I was very bored. I can't name one character name in that movie because he decided to leave it out. And I think it was a mistake. If you look at something like 1917, I know those characters, even though they're not great. I understand what they're doing, what their mission is, and I care that they accomplished their mission. I didn't care if these people survived in Dunkirk, and that's bad to say because it's a war movie, and you should want these soldiers to make it home. I didn't care because I didn't know who they were, and that's my problem with Nolan is people praise him way too much, and I don't think he deserves all the praise he gets.
I feel that his earlier stuff is obviously like you have your Memento. Memento is a great film. Obviously, he started touching on The Dark Knight, The Prestige. I feel like The Prestige is a very underrated film. I don't feel like people talk about that. And The Prestige is great.
Yes,
great film.
I love The Prestige.
Prestige is fantastic. But his Tenet looks promising. Obviously, Inception is another one. Tenet looks really promising. I don't know what the hell we're getting into. And I don't think anybody does. Anybody knows what the hell the plot of the movie is? No, because what we've seen, I was confused the whole time, but that's what he does. He's gonna drop another trailer right before where it's gonna give you just a little bit more story. But it looks great. I like the cast that's in it, and I feel it doesn't look boring. Dunkirk looked great, but even from the trailer, sorry about that. Even in the trailer, I was like, this looks great because it said Nolan's name in the front, But other than that, Dunkirk, it didn't really wow me, trailer wise. No. And the same thing with Interstellar. Interstellar, the trailer wasn't great. It looked interesting, but I'm like, I'm not running to the and I did it, and I'm like, I'm not running to the theater to see this, even though Nolan's name is attached. But Nolan, every time his name is attached in front of a trailer, it's gonna make money. It's gonna do its thing. It's an event. People are gonna go and pay to see a Nolan film. And it sucks to say that because again, going back to Villeneuve, he's a better director. He has better films, and his films have bombed. in the box office.
It sucks. I'm not a Nolan hater, which I'm probably gonna get labeled as. I don't care. I'm not a Nolan hater. I think all his movies are spectacles. I think they are worth the watch. But there is a consistent theme in all of them. Their protagonists being these businessmen that are very closed off to reality. You see it with Cobb, and you see it with Bruce Wayne, and you see it with Hugh Jackman's character in The Prestige. It's a consistent theme. I'm starting to see a pattern, and once I see that pattern, it's starting to hurt his movies a little bit for me, but I still think he has greatness in him. And anytime he puts out a film, there's a chance that greatness can be sparked again. So I'm not denigrating who he is as a filmmaker. I mean, he's 49 years old. He has so much more left ahead of him.
I'm hoping that we haven't seen his best yet.
Yeah, and I think Tenet looks good. I think Tenet looks good. I think it's an interesting concept, and I'm excited for it. And I would love for that to be the first film we see back in theaters.
Yeah.
But if I'm not gonna lie, I'm more excited for Dune, and that's just the reality situation. We're gonna get to that. But The Dark Knight is the one you brought up. Dark Knight is a great movie. We turn to more of a Nolan conversation, but The Dark Knight is fantastic. There's a couple holes I can poke in it, but for the most part, it is a perfect movie. So I completely understand your choice. So we're almost at 2 hours here.
I know, and it always happens, dude. It always happens.
But this was a fun conversation. I'm glad we had it, because we could talk about our favorite movies all the time.
Yeah,
as possible, and that's the point of this. Is we're trying.
Do you have any honorable mentions that just very quickly that you're like, I don't know how to put this that?
Yeah, I have two. I was thinking about. One was Social Network that I brought up earlier, and the other one was one that you might not have expected. It's not my favorite Marvel movie, but it's the one I think is the most perfect. That's the first Iron Man. I think the first Iron Man is a perfect movie, considering what it accomplished. The acting in it, everything that had to go right in order for it to work, and it did. I think Iron Man can qualify as that.
Yeah, I Social Network was on mine.
Mm-hmm.
But this would be more on a favorites, but I almost put Jurassic Park as well.
Okay.
And I was teeter-tottering between that and Saving Private Ryan is another one for me that is just fantastic. So
there's definitely a lot of options out there.
Yeah. But Social Net, I didn't put Social Network honestly because I thought you would, and I'm like, we're gonna discuss it anyways.
Yeah, I'm hoping one day we just discuss it on this podcast, which we'll get. We
will. For sure. We have
to. So next week, guys, it's the first of the month, and we're going to do a franchise. We haven't decided on the franchise we're doing yet, but we're basically going to come on here and we're going to talk about the franchise itself. We're going to rank the movies. We're going to talk about the characters, all this stuff. We're going to do a major one to start. So we haven't decided which one we're going to do yet. There's a couple options out there, but be prepared for that, guys. I think that's going to be a fun conversation. Do you have anything else you want to say, Jader?
Not today, bro. I think we've set it up for in an hour and 52 minutes, man.
We're tired.
Stay safe. We're almost there, guys. Home stretch. I hear like places are opening, even though they shouldn't be. But just if they decide to start opening things, just be careful.
Careful about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Be careful about it. Still follow all the rules that we're supposed to. Wear your mask. Wear your gloves. Don't wear the gloves all day. Touch everything and then toss them when you're done. At the end of the day, you touch, you let go. I can't. There's so many people that keep the gloves on all day, one set of gloves, and I'm like, you're not doing anything with that. But wear your mask, hand sanitizer, wash your hands, be clean, people. It is not that hard. Por favor. And that's it. And watch these films. I'm actually, I'm glad that you mentioned Casablanca, and you really, really convinced me. I will probably watch it this weekend. And if there's any films that you guys didn't see, no better way to start than, and then, give us your opinion. If you don't feel like The Dark Knight or Silence of the Lambs or Casablanca or 12 Angry Men are perfect films, let us know why, Be like,
what's your 5 perfect films? Let us know, please. We want to hear everyone's 5 perfect films. I want to shout out Tim, who's been commenting along with us in the chat, saying stuff like The Dark Knight Rises is awful, and I don't consider Nolan trilogy a comic book franchise. That's an interesting take right there.
I like that.
So Tim's been a part of this. Philippe Zambrana was really happy when you mentioned Goodfellas. So there's also that in there. I want to thank those guys for tuning along with us, and thank you all for tuning along with us. We'll be back next week with episode 4 of the Jader and Kyle Show. Take care, everybody.
Later.